Welcome everybody to our first episode. And we are, as you can see by our appearance and by the way we talk, we are two Indians uh, who are Orthodox Christians. And the person who is next to me is Maximus. Maximus, how are you feeling?
Oh, good. Excited, nervous at the same time. I was always
Mhm.
thinking of making a podcast for years, but
Oh,
finally it has come to
uh,
fruition. All plans have come to
finally,
fruition.
finally, we are here. It's happening, as Ron Paul would say.
Poor guy didn't win.
And I am John, and both of us. In what year did you become Orthodox, Maximus? Because I
December
became in
2019.
the same year. So we came to
Yep.
the faith in the same year, and there's a lot of things that we'd like to discuss, and we're quite new to this, so we're going to uh, sort of like go organically into this and see where it all leads us. Well, the first thing we just want to, before we introduce ourselves, we'd like to, uh, you know, just make a note of the chaotic nature of the world around us these days. We're not going to go specifically into this from the start, but we're really want to just make a note of it because if you look at, I was reading this thread the other day on Twitter about the Zoomer generation and what the way they think, and they kind of like it's considered uncool to be idealistic, and it's considered to be cringe if you are having any kind of conviction, and I think you may know, you may have a lot of Zoomer friends yourself, Maximus. So what do you think? Give us some of your general opinions about what you think is wrong with the world, and you know, just go ahead.
Uh, let's start with Zoomers. So, working in a corporate, uh, I have colleagues from different age ranges, and you can see the difference. Like me being a 90s kid, things were different. It's not that we knew a lot of things compared to now, which is considered to be a digital age. Access to knowledge was difficult. There was a certain charm to it because you had to search a book in a library, pick it up, and then that's the only way out. And it was fun. Uh, we tend to value a lot of things. I personally from the 90s because nothing was easy. Everything, like, let it be knowledge or let it be entertainment. I remember having a TV having just one channel, Doordarshan, and even to get a good reception, you need to check the antenna upstairs. So, to keep it in a simple way, the concept of instant gratification wasn't there at that time.
Mhm.
So there was a charm to a lot of things. Now everything is prime same day delivery. Your reels, you just flick your finger and everything changes. So everything is, like a philosopher would say, in flux right now. It's everything is about change. Uh, there is a change in your friendships too fast. Your jobs change too fast. Even if you spend 2 years in a company right now, it's like time to change. Where if you see our parents, they've devoted entire life to one or maximum two organization if it was a private job. But mostly it used to be a public sector government job and just to dedicate it to one organization. And when it comes to Zoomers, the main thing I don't like about them, or I would say not comfortable about them, is uh, Since everything is easily available, everything needs to be easy even when it comes to your life. So there is no room for discomfort, no room for pain. Anything that you don't like can be, what do you say, obscene, or it can be harmful. You're not in a safe space in the western, if you can use a western term for it. And nobody likes to be challenged. Everyone wants their own little bubble. Yeah, this is me, this is me. And it's difficult to make friendship with them. It's difficult to have a conversation. And this is that is something, like I am a father and I have two kids, so that is something that bothers me as well. How do I raise my kids? Because the main question that they'll have is, why are we different than compared to others? So there are a lot of things, and yeah, as days comes, we'll shed some light on them.
Right, right. And it's very interesting that you mentioned that this current generation, they want everything. So, they want everything just like that. They don't want to struggle. And
Yeah,
so
of
it's
course.
natural when we see the acceleration, of how technology is changing, like you mentioned. And this is in my opinion just a byproduct of that aspect. And you can see this affecting the dating market too, when previous generations, as you may be familiar with this, is that we all had to build relationships
Yep.
prior to commitment and anything like that. But now, if you see the current generation, they're not too bothered about long-term commitments. They just you know they just feel comfortable uh by just taking it as it is, and not really having to do any work, like you said. But this is really, I want to contrast that to the journey that we both have taken in this kind of environment. And both of us, were born in very traditional conservative Hindu families, I believe. And I can relate to you in many ways, by so far in what you have told me about your journey. But just for our audience, I would like you to uh, you know, take us back to Maximus 5 or 10, even 10 years ago, if you'd like it, and show us, who Maximus was 10 years ago, and how you progressed to the state that you are in right now, and how your worldviews have changed. So take us through all of those years, Maximus, and I can, jump in as well, if I have any questions.
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't say 5 or 10 years, because I believe that's less time to change your worldviews entirely. The, so I think that stands for everyone. I mean, it depends on how your parents are and what beliefs they do have, because that's where you start from. So my parents, especially my dad, was a progressive man. Uh, he had humble beginnings, and he took the pain of coming to Mumbai and getting a good job and working his way up, and he was quite successful at that. So for him, coming out of a slum into a good middle class locality, uh, that was most important for him for his lifetime, and that was the worldview that he had. I mean, a man should always progress. Uh, he never said materialistically, but that's what he always meant, because that is what was important for him. And he never had time for such things as how the world works, or what is truth, or what are the things that matter at this point of time. The important things were, like earning a good salary, making good investments. So, as a child, that is something I think everybody experiences in the early year. Is there are a lot of questions. There are always things thrown at you at school, like this is X, this is Y, and this is Z. But I always had that uh, kind of meta level thinking. Like if you're going through a history textbook and it narrates an event, now that's fine. At that point of time, you just need to mug that up and you need to pass the exam. And it's important, good to know thing, no doubt about that. But once you reach 10 years of age and 12 years of age, you start wondering from where that information was extracted. Because you are like even 1,000 years after that, 1,000 years you are going through that event. 1,000 years later, you read about Indian independence. It was we were like after it was 50 years of independence already. And it applied to all subjects. I mean, fine, you're teaching it, but that's fine. But how did how was that information gathered? How it how was it decided that this is the right thing that needs to be done? So things like that always troubled me. But that is where somewhere I lost interest in formal education kind of things. So somewhere, fortunately, unfortunately, at that time, my parents gave me a set of books called World Encyclopedia. So it was a set of 22 books, and all topics were alphabetically arranged like a dictionary. And I started spending more time in that, but eventually lost interest because there was no one to talk about it. Even if you discuss it with your teacher, it's like you focus on what's there in the exam, forget all these things. So that's where I wanted to search answers beyond what is usually taught in schools and colleges. And being from an scheduled caste family, there is lot of reverence for Dr. Ambedkar.
What's
And
for our international audiences, they may not be familiar with that term. What's a scheduled caste family? Can you explain that?
okay, so scheduled caste is like colored person, you can say, equivalent to US. So these are a group of people who uh, previously were outside the caste system and they were referred as untouchables. And these were the type of the people who used to do all the labor and menial jobs. And due to the nature of the occupation and some religious background, people of the so-called upper class caste used to deem that these people are not fit to be touched or should be included in social activities which are done with us, including religious activities and practices. So later, as time passed by, from untouchables, then we now it's categorized as scheduled caste. So one of our leaders who really was the first one to be highly educated and was a part uh, of Indian independence and he was also taking care of the drafting of the constitution. Now, many people say from our caste he drafted the constitution. That's not the case. He, it, he just took care of the whole process. And he was very influential for us. And before his death, he had mentioned that I was born a Hindu, but I won't die a Hindu. And he had accepted Buddhism. And many people from our caste had also accepted it. But nonetheless, it is a materialistic, not materialistic in the sense, but it is you can't say religion, but you can say the presuppositions for Buddhist idea is that there is nothing metaphysical. So reality lies in the physical world, and that is it. And there is no concept of, at least in the Ambedkar version of Buddhism, there is no concept of a creator or a soul or anything metaphysical. So it's more of a physical worldview. But because of that, what had happened is, since there was no concept of metaphysical or no room for that, so even people who were followers of it, who strictly used to adhere to it, uh, were eventually progressives, because nothing different than what the typical bourgeoisie of that time was. So you really didn't find answers in that. So you're always struggling, like. And as you grow up, you say this is good, this is bad, this is appropriate, this is moral, this is not, untouchability is not good, and this is not bad. But the question still remains. I mean, what is the ontological weight of a moral in a system in which everything is physical? I couldn't word it that way at that time, but that was the question that I have. I mean, in a place where everything is physical, why is something which is not physical so important? Like untouchability is bad, or there is injustice. But I didn't know at that point of time when I completed my schooling, there is something called philosophy, and you can get into all these things. Neither my parents knew. I finished. Okay, what you're doing all this? You do IIT, IIM, and all that. So education, pretty much in short, was just like, you do it for the sake you do it, and you need to earn a job, and then breed, and then that's your life. But then, when you're young, you really don't think much. You try to enjoy your life as much as you can. And the thing is, when you start getting back to work, this thing started bothering me. So the turning point for me was, post graduation. So I was in a college which was a Marxist level, and it was a college for social studies, and everything was studied from a Marxist lens.
Did they have
Now,
critical race theory over there in the
no, it's
curriculum?
more. It was more India focused, so they didn't have a critical race theory of that. Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Everything is a product of patriarchy, Brahmins, and what is that other thing? Yeah, that those two were the main points. I mean, you come up with an issue, like, for example, just a hypothetical example, like, video games are are making children violent. That is linked to patriarchy. A certain, like, I was into psychology, and when it comes to studying about a typical Indian family and how the dynamic works in an Indian family and the gender roles, so there was nothing. I mean, it was just considered as a woman cannot vote, a homosexual cannot be wrong. I mean, anything than a upper caste man, except for, that's the only type of person. An upper caste male can only be wrong. Rest
So
everyone is fine.
this is a private school you're talking about, or is
Mm,
it a public
it's
school?
a
Is
deemed
it
university.
okay?
Uh, it's
So
so
this was happening in the 90s, right?
no,
Or
no.
in the late
This
80s?
no, no. This is for my post graduation. So that is like 2010.
Oh, okay, okay. So I mean, this was already going on back then.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
just
So I mean,
imagine what
yes,
it.
the majority of my life was just like being an atheist and wondering about things, but never getting anywhere. But coming at this college, like, even though as an atheist, like, among colleges where Marxism is rampant, there is a huge tolerance and support for things like homosexuality and abortion. and I never felt those things were good for the society, and and that is where my ideas got challenged. So there was one fellow from Northeast who was a Protestant Christian, and he used to always call me a Marxist. Well, you are a Marxist, and I never liked Marx, to be honest. I was a big pro private property person. Never liked Marx.
So you were an Ancapistan kind of person.
I was neither that, but somewhere I didn't like Marx for some reason, because whenever at that point of time, whenever I've read history, it was I was aware of what had happened in Soviet Union when the government was implemented, and in China as well as other Southeast Asia countries. So I wasn't aware of Marxist thinking or what did they teach, but I had little bit knowledge of what had happened in Soviet countries or communist countries after the Second World War. So I was never for that system, but I never understood why this guy didn't call me a Marxist. But then later I realized that my presuppositions were same as Marx, and being an atheist, I shouldn't have a problem with something like abortion or homosexuality and survival of the fittest. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I was
Yeah.
going to. I was saying that I find that very interesting because you were an atheist at that time, and still you found things like homosexuality and abortion were not positive contributions to society. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. Where do you think that came from?
I don't know. I was atheist, uh, and not just any atheist, the most irritating one who used to follow Richard Dawkins and what was that Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens, and someone would just say, "Oh my God, by mistake, I would eat their head for 5 minutes." That kind of person. But I at that point of time, I never had justification. But abortion was simple because I mean, it is a what do you say? It's a development in stage of life, so it's a murder. Abortion was really not such a big trouble for me, but homosexuality was. I mean, I couldn't find a justification from a Darwinian perspective. Because you know the chimps do it, this XN type of animal do it, human beings also do it. We are like after all a family, so it's all in the family, man. So, but it felt my like from my gut, it felt disgusting, to be honest.
So you had
And
a kind of natural revulsion to it,
yeah, it was it was something like let's say when it's a heterosexual couple, and if like let's say they uh, started getting, let's say almost heterosexual couple gets intimate in a
right?
public place, you get disgusted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've always felt it was some kind of diversion, even though I didn't like witness people in a homosexual union or was them being intimate, but it always felt weird and I hated it for some reason. But I couldn't find an answer. But still, God wasn't an answer for me. Though before that, uh, I went into quite many religious circles. Like I said, I was a bit confused, but I went to Hindus and few evangelical Christians, but didn't work out. So one thing I had in my mind, this was a Marxist college, so the solution has to be someone who is against Marx. So that is where anarcho-capitalism came into picture. So I was just searching for stuff, and Mises.org just popped up in the search results, and I was happy looking at the list of materials they have it for free, and I just started, watching their videos on YouTube, and I think that was the last time where YouTube was good. I mean, there was you could find literally everything, and I went through few authors, and Especially, I noticed that quite a few authors are traditional Catholics. I wasn't aware traditional Catholics, but I came to know they're Catholics, and I
So
just
this
went
is,
to.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this I
uh,
find this trajectory very interesting because not many Indians, I mean, for my experience, not many
mm,
Indians go down the anarcho capitalist route,
mm.
and but you seem to have been exposed to that. Uh, so is this like, did you get exposed to it through the internet, or uh, did you get like? Can you exaggerate on that a little bit? Because I
Yes,
find this
obviously through.
fascinating from an Indian perspective, you see. Yeah.
Yes, obviously through internet. Now, like my aim was anyone who's against Marx, and the worst critics of Marx are, eh, anarcho-capitalist, and it was something new. So, as someone who's like in the early 20s, and like you've heard of democracy, you've heard of communism, you've heard of national socialism, but not just anarcho-capitalism. Anarchy, the concept of anarchy itself was new to me at that point of time. So for me, it was like a newfound hobby. Like it was, I was impressed by someone could think like that. And at that age, you get attracted by radical ideas, right? Throughout the spectrum. And I don't recall the name of the author because I haven't read it for quite some time. So there was one particular author who was a traditional Catholic. He had written many books, and he had. So I'd read all the economics part, and I saw one book which I thought of reading it or giving it a try. It was called "How Catholic Church Shaped Western Civilization," something like Thomas Woods. Yeah, Thomas Woods. That was the guy's name. And I read through it, and I was surprised because if coming from Dawkins and Hitchens, you only hear about Spanish Inquisition and uh, all the evil things that has been done by the Catholic Church, but I never knew about what they have contributed and how the, I won't say just Catholic, but the how the Christian idea has shaped the entire world. And I was amazed by it, and I thought maybe this is where I should look at. And first thing I did was find a local parish, and I thought, okay, let's be a Catholic now. I mean, wasn't ready to be a Catholic, but go to the catechism course and then maybe decide whether it's something that suits you or answers everything. But I went to a local parish. The priest was busy with his breakfast. He was least interested that I was standing there. He was more worried about the conversion bill that was passed by the government. He was talking about the legal procedures that are required. I said, fine, whatever. But I didn't like the way the priest behaved. And I was like, fine, leave it, I'll give it a thought. Then I read his second book, which was written on him, which was about the Second Vatican Council and how it had changed everything. So I thought, okay, let's try with the traditional Catholics and see that if I can find something. So I went back home. I thought I'd give it some days to think whether I should go ahead with that. And I read a second book on Catholicism by Thomas Wicks. I don't remember the title, but it was about Vatican II and how Vatican II had changed the Catholic Church. And it did make some sense to me. Like I've been seeing Catholics right since I was in school, and they like me coming from a Hindu background. We had little bit of conservative upbringing, and they were quite liberal. They were quite outgoing, and that always puzzled me as in like what kind of religion is this? But then after understanding what Vatican II was and what traditional Catholicism was, it made, I was a bit more positive about Catholicism. Yes, maybe with times things must have changed, but there are still people who are conservative in a lot of ways. And, first thing I did was checked Trident in Latin Mass on YouTube. It was done by a proper choir, and it was amazing. You get moved listening to, Latin sung by a choir which is musically trained, and I was like on really excited. Like, no, now I need to be a traditional church. I'll definitely get my answers there. I started searching the internet, and then I realized that those parishes which have Latin Mass do not exist in India. But there was something called SSPX, Society of Saint Pius the Tenth. Now, this is a group which writes since the beginning, as where to separate these guys separated from the Catholic Church. They started their own organization, and they had mass in Latin. And fortunately, there were few people in Mumbai who are part of that group. And at that point of time, they had one priest that was from India, and we had other priests who used to come on a weekly basis for conducting the liturgy. I said, good. I just call up the person. There was one number listed who was the point of contact. I gave them a call. They gave me a date and time, and I was like really happy. Like something meaningful is going to happen in my life. I'm, Mumbai is vast, and I
Right.
stay in Thane district, which is outside Mumbai, to be honest. And traveling to northern Mumbai, that's in Malad, approximately 2.5 hours journey. At that particular point of time, I went there. Sorry, I talked to the priest, and I was excited about the liturgy. And then I saw there were just 3 or 4 people who were either middle-aged or extremely old, and everybody bred like a dog. So all that excitement about Latin Mass was
Uh,
crumbled.
it all went out the window.
Yeah. And like, why did I come here? Because I wasn't into theology. Yes, I had read scriptures, but it was never in continuity, and there were a lot of gaps. Sometimes there's a gap of 6 months or maybe a year. So I know, I just knew in nutshell what happened. Like there was Moses, then there was prophecy, there's Christ fulfilled the prophecy, and then there were apostles. से अपना कैथलिक चर्च बन गया. So that is इतना basic knowledge था. But still, I thought maybe they'll have answers to what I'm seeking for. But then you have to attend the liturgies to get that. So that is when I started reading about history of the church and little bits of theology. So what happened in SSBX is we only discuss mostly about this was a good pope, this was a bad pope. Somewhere little bit Saint Augustine or Faithful or Thomas Aquinas, or maybe some church father here and there. But we never talked about the teachings of church father in its entirety. Like uh, in the first millennium or the first 300 years, this is what the church fathers used to teach. Now, it's a church that claims to have continuity from the first apostle till date. But it was, you felt somewhere in Protestant territory, where from Saint Paul you immediately jump to Martin Luther. You are from Saint Paul, you jump to Augustine and then
Yeah,
Thomas Aquinas.
Yeah, it's like the early church, first 1,000 years didn't even happen. It's like
Ah,
big gap in history.
yeah, and like the most mind-boggling puzzle that you uh, can never understand. I think nobody understands is the infallibility of the Pope.
Right.
It's exactly like that meme where there's so huge university and there's some big algorithm written which doesn't make any sense, and then there's written below what is this? What is this? They're explaining the infallibility of the Pope. And as time passed by, I mean, I was getting comfortable with the language and the liturgy. That was good, definitely. There was, you could find a little bit of reverence in the mass because there was, it was done religiously and strictly. It wasn't like any neo-Catholic, sorry, Novo Catholic to be precise. Parish in which, you come on a Sunday and it's just fashion show and people just come for the sake of it. That definitely was something great about that place. But then when you talk about things like when is the Pope infallible, when it is not, you know,
Yeah.
you have to sound stupid and then pretend as if you actually understood what you're saying. That
Right.
is very difficult. Especially, I mean, most of the people there didn't have the problem because most of them were Catholics who have just joined the traditional Catholic group.
Mm.
But there were very few people like me. So you tend to think more, which is not considered good.
Right.
Like if you are in a particular organization now, if you're a Protestant, don't think of liturgy and don't think of this, just read the Bible. I don't think so.
Right.
Another issue with SSPX was like, he's the Pope, but he's heretic, and a heretic cannot be a Pope. And like, so what are you like? Is he the valid Pope or is he no? No, he's the valid Pope. Arre, but he's a heretic, no? But heretic cannot be a Pope, right? Heretic cannot, but he's the Pope.
This
Oh,
is very confusing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, you're like, you had that being a part of a group was good, who actually, you didn't, who were actually conservative and, appreciated having a family and having a certain kind of gender role. That was good, but then you couldn't converse long. You can't have a long conversation with them. It has to be a small talk. But if you, because you are someone who wasn't a Christian, so you have a lot of questions, and they have passed a good amount of years being a Catholic, right? They were cradle Catholics, to be honest. So it didn't bother them so much that it bothered me. And secondly was this obsession with Fatima. Like
Fatima.
on the 100th year, I think that was 2017, 100 years of Fatima will complete and Earth will be destroyed if Russia is not consecrated. And for 100 years, the Pope has tried to consecrate, but something happened. And like, how can that be possible? No,
The
ye nahi
Pope.
tha, uska, his
The Pope
one
just.
eyelid was closed or open, something. I mean, they just come up with something.
Yeah, just recently. I mean, at the start of this war in Ukraine, there was a consecration done by Pope Francis, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been going on for some time.
And then the that was like the last nail on the coffin, Fatima, because uh, since my childhood days, I had some kind of fascination for Soviet Union and like huge landmass, East Germany se leke ready was some kind of superpower, all those symbols and the uniforms, KGB, mythology and all that thing.
Yeah.
No matter what, KGB always sounded cooler than CIA anytime.
Yeah.
That ruthless.
Cool bad guys.
Yeah, you like, as a male, you always lean towards ruthless things. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and I knew that, after uh, Soviet Union, after Yeltsin to be precise, things have changed, and it's not that what they claim that Fatima people claim. It's different. It's not exactly what I mean. It's totally different than what they claim. So
So before moving on, I just want to this is for the audience, some or not all people may know what is this Fatima thing that we're referring to. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this is about a Marian apparition that happened in early 20th century Italy, correct? And a couple of shepherd girls saw a vision of Mary, and they were told they were told a number of things that have implications geopolitically,
mhm.
but the number one thing that's often highlighted is that Mary had told these shepherd girls that Russia, which was Soviet Union at that time, is going to come back to Catholicism, correct?
Mm, sort of. So Fatima is a village in Portugal,
Oh,
and
sorry, I got the country wrong. Yeah.
too much Catholic to pela Italia.
Yeah,
So
it's in Portugal. Yeah.
so I don't recall whether they're siblings, but three kids, two girls and a boy, and they, uh, they had this Marian apparition, and it was before Soviets took over the
Oh, okay.
The Russian Empire.
Okay.
So the major highlight of it was Russia will be captured, and if Russia is not consecrated, then the errors of Russia, that is communism, will be spread throughout the world. Now, even though I, I think, even though these events happened before Soviet conquest, takeover of Tsarist Russia, I think what was revealed in that apparition was made in public after the Soviets took over.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
so sure, but that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk about errors of Russia, communism has nothing to do with Russia. Neither were
Right.
the.
It's a Western
Uh,
invention. It's a Western
yeah,
ideology largely. It just happened to have take over Russia, but the core ideologies they had nothing to do with Russia.
yeah. I think they
So
only went after races because one, it was easy to swindle people because it didn't have an industrial base compared to West, where
right.
people were happy with the wages. And secondly, um I think it had to do. Some people claim it had to do with programs. Like
Mm-hmm.
85% of Bolsheviks at that time were kosher,
Okay.
and they had to,
Uh-huh.
you know, do something about what had happened earlier.
Okay.
And yeah, that is why if you see one of the first laws that was passed by Soviet Union was making anti-Semitism illegal.
Mm-hmm.
But the story, communism had nothing to do with Russia. It has something
Yeah, and it
that
was
came out from.
also the revolution itself was also pushed by Wall Street bankers. They had
Yeah.
huge financial influence
Uh,
into all of this, right? I mean, there's a book by Anthony Sutton called
yeah.
uh, Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution or
Uh,
something like that.
yeah.
It's a very interesting
Absolutely.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the Western disease has gone to the East, the other way around.
Right. Right.
But then, fine. Uh, then you say, okay, now let's get back to the Pope because when it comes to Catholicism, everything is based on the Pope,
Right.
and you have questions like, okay, you say when the Pope is elected, is guided by the Holy Spirit, then how the hell do you have so many anti-popes?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is one thing I had in my mind. Secondly, sorry, 2000 years of church history, and the first Vatican Council happened somewhere in the 1800s or 1800s. So
Hmm.
the infallibility of the Pope was formally made as dogma in the 1800s. So
Oh,
if something is that basic, which is has to do with tradition coming from
hundreds of years later, it
more
becomes
than
codified.
1,000 years. Yes.
Yeah, as per their perspective, it's like it happens almost. Not almost, more than 1,000 years. Almost 2,000 years passes when the that doctrine is codified as per First Vatican One.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened is, since I knew it was not as, I mean, their depiction of Russia was not right, and I knew religion was somewhere, you know, uh,
Hmm.
something that Russian people are taking seriously after the fall of Soviet Union and the number of churches that increased. Sorry. So I knew that much about Russia, not much. I didn't know that there is an Eastern Orthodox Church as such,
Hmm.
and about its history. But then, curiosity, like
Right.
let's start doing that.
Mm.
And then um, I came to know that they have apostolic succession. They have the liturgy in which there is unleavened bread and wine that is actually given to the parishioners and not some wafer dipped in wine.
Hmm. Right.
So, I don't know, wafer is the first thing that comes
Yeah,
to my idea.
when we read the New Testament account of the Last Supper, we can see how similar the Orthodox Eucharist is to what was actually practiced. Right. The only difference is that I believe the Passover bread was not leavened, but the Orthodox Eucharist bread is leavened. Then that is because Christ's incarnation that makes the difference. But I'm just speaking generally here. I'm not an expert on sacramentology or anything. But it's very interesting. Your trajectory into orthodoxy was basically through the Fatima conversations that happened in your Catholic in your Catholic parish, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's more like, Russia didn't get consecrated, so the errors of Russia got
Right.
doctrinated.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yes, so then I came to know that they have saints whose bodies are not corrupted. And the major difference was they look natural, unlike those wax figures in Vatican.
Oh, okay.
So if you notice, usually if you see uncorrupted bodies of saints who are from most schisms church, they look
Yeah.
whitish.
So, do you
Whereas,
think that those uncorrupted figures in the Vatican? I'm not familiar with what is on display there, but the uncorrupted bodies of saints over there, they are more like wax figures. Do you think that?
uh, I don't know for certain as well, to be honest.
Mm.
And make, I won't take a guess in such matter because,
Hmm.
they were holy in their own way, except, post Vatican two saints.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe I think, or maybe just a way to preserve what is left. They must have. I don't know, but I don't know for certain to be honest. And it may be, maybe not. I mean, I don't know for certain. That's what I would say.
Hmm.
But yeah, and that is where like you have everything more or less like the Catholic Church, but then there is differences also. I went through each and every difference, like filioque or like theosis or grace, and the difference in how we view the Trinity in the Orthodoxy, And that is where I started, scratching theology and try to understand what it is.
Mhm.
But it was more or less impossible to go through those kind of heavy readings. And then you always have your two friends, Google and YouTube. So
So yeah, it's very interesting what you've said, and I want to just we can discuss the theological and all of those aspects as we move on into future episodes. But what I'm most interested in right now is now that I'm familiar with how you came into the Orthodox Church, how has your worldview shaped into right now, like compared to what you used to believe when you were an atheist, fresh out of university. So how
yeah,
has, in other words, how has orthodoxy changed your worldview from atheism and into into the current worldview that you have?
yes. To put it precisely, I'll be honest, I never had a spiritual experience till this day.
Hmm.
Everything is being more or less by reading and intellectual, my conversion. But what has Orthodoxy done that other religions could not was uh, answer some of my questions. It's like I can't now, even till this day, I can't say that Orthodoxy is has to be the only truth and nothing else can be true other than that. But there are some things which make sense only through Orthodoxy. It's like
Hmm.
some questions as like uh, how do we know what we know about this world? Because science can take you till um, till some extent. Like okay, this is how things work, but a, a question of how these things came into being and how how we came on earth and everything. So if you, in very shortly, if you go to different religions, they have like Hinduism, they have multiple accounts of it. If you go to other religions, it is you'll always find something missing. Like uh, like if you take Islam for example, you have your own questions about uh, the types of revelations they have mentioned and their credibility. And if you go by Judaism, it's somewhat incomplete. So when you start asking the question, how you start asking the question is like one of the good things that I learned from listening to many Orthodox podcasts is something called presupposition. Is
Hmm.
how do you start?
Pre-sub,
Like,
uh, pre-sub gang. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, what do you take for granted? Like as an atheist, you like when I said, coming to a moral conclusion from an atheist point of view, you take something as granted, like moral is logic. Ah, it's logical, it's moral. So this is after coming to orthodoxy. This is where I uh, got to know about such kind of questions. Like fine, you consider morals, you consider it. It's not given. It has to come from somewhere. Right? I mean, how the main question for me was we always have these presuppositions which are all metaphysical things like identity, time, ethics, logic, or mathematics, whatever you call. But how do you fit or give an account of these metaphysical things from any worldview, let maybe from a religious worldview or a pure materialistic worldview? And the answer to these questions, and if you see the answer that orthodoxy have, that gives a more concrete explanation and it gives more feasible explanation. I don't know how to word it, but the explanation follows. Like, yes,
Right.
it makes sense if you consider things in an orthodox worldview. How if you consider certain presuppositions, fine, where these presuppositions, keeping it simple for today, but keeping like, fine, you say morality, for example, you take the concept of soul, or you take identity over time. Uh,
Mm.
if you consider these things, when does it make sense? Does it make sense from a Big Bang theory? No.
Mm.
Does it has space when it comes to creator? Then yes, there is a room for metaphysical things when it comes to a creator. Then then you go level up what which type of creator he is something that matches a creator which is described in Hinduism, or it is creator something um, that is described in Christianity. And then you go further from there, like to, like for example, to make for having this metaphysical realities in a world, and for a creator to do that, uh, it has to make sense when a creator is
Mm.
personal. Like an Aristotle prime mover doesn't need to have a personal connection and doesn't need to give faculty or reason to a material world. It's just a
Yeah.
prime mover, things are moving. Yeah, so it has to be a personal God. And how can we have a personal God? It can be only be known by a revelation.
Yeah, I
So
mean, this is very important to consider. Like that's one of the reasons why I have accepted the Christian faith as well. It's because if we are to have any intrinsic value in the human individual, then we have to consider personhood, right?
mm,
And who is going to provide that personhood? Only a personal creator can provide that personhood, right? And so we have all of these systems, as you mentioned, Hinduism and even atheism, and it's very difficult to see a personal god. I mean, of course you have the unique characteristics of all of these Hindu gods and goddesses, but at the same time, uh, how do you get a sense of, and this is you can speak to this as well, how do we get a sense of this concept of value in the human person from the Hindu pantheon of deities?
mm.
So what would you say to that? I mean, personally, I don't see uh, polytheism providing any of that, because
See, for me,
it's
polytheism cannot result in uniformity in nature. For me, that's something that doesn't make sense. I mean, let's say, let's take an hypothetical example. There's you and me, and let's say we have to make a sculpture, and we
right.
have a clay. What you'll make and what I'll make would be completely different,
Yeah.
and the idea behind would be completely different. So that's where polytheism doesn't work for me, as in you can't have uniformity in nature when it comes to polytheism. But even let's say if you consider the concept of uh, uh, Brahman, the ultimate soul, the monoistic part of it, the non-dual part of it. So that is impersonal to start with. I don't think any Hindu text claim that it is personal, and
Right.
uh, and,
Yeah.
and anything that has to do with the physical world and person or personhood is considered to be as Maya. So
Maya
then
as in illusion.
illusion.
Everything is illusion.
So
Like the
that poses a,
matrix.
yeah.
Like
So
the
it poses, yeah.
Yeah.
So it poses a lot of questions like, if it's not real, then why you want to escape it?
Right. Yeah.
See, first thing it's illusory, and second part of it is your soul is trapped and needs to get. and part of Atman, which is real, which is soul, uh, be a part of something that doesn't exist.
Well, they might argue, and I'm trying to, strongman their argument
Uh,
here. They may try to argue that, it's your soul that is trapped in an illusion. Like how we come to believe in a lie, that in that manner, our soul has bought into the lie, of Maya. So we need to, awaken from this thing.
yes,
Yeah.
then my question to that person would be, as far as my knowledge goes, you are that piece of Atman which has been physically separated from that Atman.
Yeah.
Metaphysically or physically, whichever way you put it.
Yeah.
No? Your separation. First thing is, why do you separate? I mean, I don't know the cause of it. Why would something as grand as a Brahman would allow its pieces to scatter? I mean,
Right.
first I would like to know that. My first question would be that. Second, if it's separated and it's trapped in a lie, I mean, lie as in what? Are you talking about a space? Or, I
Yeah.
mean, I need to understand where is the separation from the Brahman, and that illusion or that lie are you talking about? What kind of entity it is? Is it a physical space which is gives you an illusion of physical space? I need to. You need to. In that case, you need to explain to me what is that illusion and what are the properties of. First,
Yeah.
I mean, if it's a lie,
Mhm.
then I mean, if it is a lie, then what is the truth? You're, it's an giving. It's that system for me is giving like ontological weightage to a lot of ontological weightage to something that you are calling it illusionary in the first place. So
Mhm.
everything you're trying to describe about that illusion can be. I mean, it sounds as if all these things are there. You have your physical body, okay,
Mhm.
and you live in this material world. You do everything. If is a lie, what do you imply? Is your body does not exist at all, or is the physical world not existing at all?
I
And
mean,
if
there
it
are
does
some.
not,
Mhm.
if it does not, then where actually your soul is found?
Yeah, and like you just alluded to, this we when we believe in the system of Maya, we don't know if our body is an illusion or not, right? And you can see this played out in this Hindu yogis who go to the highest mountains, and uh, in the most of harshest conditions, they attempt to meditate so that their soul leaves their bodies and joins with the super soul, right? Or like the Brahman or whatever. And I mean, this is the interpretation I got from the Vaishnavas, who are like the this sect of Hinduism.
I mean, I get what they're saying. It's not that
Mm-hmm. Mm.
it's totally stupid for me, but my struggle with it is like first
Yeah.
thing you're trapped in a lie. I mean, if it is illusion, how did you know it is an illusion? And
Right.
when it comes to Vedas or scriptures, the problem is it's not historically dated. It is always eternal, and it has been communicated to the earliest rishis whom we do not know.
Right.
So, if it was an illusion, how did those people at that point realize it? And being an impersonal god, how was it narrated? If the nature
Right.
of the Brahman is impersonal, how was the truth communicated via illusion? These are my questions. But
Right.
before
Yeah.
I get there, the other person gets furious and just leaves. Conversation stops.
You have to approach somebody who is very intellectual, like Sadhguru, or or somebody of that caliber to get an answer.
I am a nobody, man.
Yeah, but you know,
I
but
mean, Sadhguru, sorry, seems to be like, Jordan Peterson of India.
yeah, he's
You
the
think
Jordan.
that he said something wise, but then when you actually reflect upon it, it was like, what did he
Right.
just say?
I mean, recently, have you heard the statement he made at the? We won't name this organization or anything, but this infamous, group of uh, capitalist, corporatist people, and they were talking about population and all of that. So Sadhguru, when he was interviewed, he was asked, "What is your stance on DEPOP, that
Hmm,
thing?" So
hmm.
he said, like, uh, people want something like, people want.
Reduce carbon footprint, you need to have less feet, something like that. Right?
No, that is there, but at the same time, he said, like, I want less souls on this world.
That
So
was, I think, a continuation of that statement, which I just.
yeah, and then he smiled and then he laughed, and I'm like, wow, that's profound. So how exactly are you going to achieve that less souls on this planet? This is
I mean, why does it matter if it's an illusion?
yeah, I mean, if it's an illusion, why are you so troubled by carbon footprints and all of that? So that kind of like you correctly estimated, it kind of exposes his role. But I wanted to bring an attention to this aspect of, like, this illusion is kind of like Gnosticism in a sense, because just like the Gnostics, and for anyone who's not familiar with what the Gnostics are, they basically say everything that is material is evil, and
Hmm.
everything that is metaphysical or like soul, spiritual, that is from God. Everything else is from Satan. So this Maya thing it has a lot of similarities with the
Yes,
Gnostics, in my
it's
opinion.
not just the nature of that particular thought, but even the way that you can gain that particular idea is also somewhat similar to most, because there is
Yeah,
this some kind of hidden knowledge out there which is very difficult to access, and you
yeah,
need some kind of guide or mentor who will
yeah.
explain you these things, and then once you get that, then you are free and
Right, right.
you have all
So,
that esoteric kind of knowledge.
right, and on top of that, you have this very Gnostic like mentality in this Maya doctrine as well, because if you consider everything that is physical, flesh,
Hmm.
as from Satan, and in other words, if you consider it illusory, like illusion, then your impetus or your motivation to do good is very difficult to it's very difficult to get anything out of that system, which says, like, for example, in Christianity, which Jesus says, uh, do what was the golden rule? uh, this
I don't know what you're
do
referring.
unto others what consider beneficial to you, something
Something
similar
like
to that. So how do you get something like that, which, like, people from other non-Christian people as well, they consider that one of Jesus's greatest teachings. So how do you get something like that from a system like the Maya doctrine? That's my question, because why should you do good to other people, if you consider everything illusory? And how exactly, do you attempt to, even bring a person out of an illusory state?
that.
So,
Yes, I mean, even, I mean, there is a concept of an eternal dharma. I mean, then that is another question that I have. If dharma is eternal, then you need to have people for dharma, right?
well, yeah, I mean, if it's, I mean, on the topic of dharma, like, why should you consider it your duty to do good to other person? I mean, of course you can say dharma or karma or whatever, but if you say like it's so that you don't reincarnate into a lesser being or something,
Mm.
then it's are you really doing it out of selflessness, or are you really doing it out of selfish motives? So it's very, in my opinion, like it gets very muddy in that
Mm.
in that territory. What do you think?
For personally, for me, I'm I haven't uh, read or studied Hinduism in its entirety, but whatever my experience is, the moment I get into it, my questions just increases. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That is the thing. Another thing which just came to my mind is uh, the body as being negative. I think only the Orthodox Christians are the group which consider that to be the case. Even if
Yeah.
you consider, uh,
That's why we have icons. That's why we
mm,
have sacraments. You know, we don't.
mm,
There's nothing in Christianity, as per the Orthodox tradition, that material things are evil in and of itself. They can be used for evil things, right? But what ultimately decides whether they're evil or not is you, the human person and free will. And you know, Jesus himself, he came down as a human being, so he bridged that gap between holiness and the material in the incarnation. And when he was resurrected after crucifixion, when he was crucified and then he was resurrected, he resurrected in the flesh,
mm,
and then he ascended in his bodily state. So he did not abandon the body. There's nothing in the Gospels that say that he abandons the body and then his spirit
mm,
goes out. That's why the early church fathers, they were against the Gnostics, because the
mm,
Gnostics said that Jesus, when he was resurrected, he came into a phantom
mm.
state, like he was not in the flesh. He was like a spirit, like a phantom. So yeah, I mean, you can see why why Orthodox Christianity specifically is not against the flesh,
mm.
and this is against the dualistic nature of all of the systems we talked about. Even atheism, right? Like you have dialectics in atheism too. So in Hinduism, you know, you also fall into a
Yes,
kind of dualistic mindset.
I think it's as mentioned in God history and dialectics. If you consider church history, it has always been uh, Jerusalem versus Athens kind of thing. Like
Mhm.
you have revelation at one place, and then you have your Hellenic philosophy in one place, and they've always the battle was always that. Even if you consider Islam as one of the main competitors of Christianity at its beginning stage, it was uh, more of an Hellenic principle of God rather than a revealed personal God,
Right.
and that is what Catholicism has come to at that point at the end of the first century.
Mhm.
And there is, I mean, there is a lot of similarity when it comes to Hindu thought and Hellenic philosophy. Like if you consider something like Plato, in which you have a concept of reincarnation.
Mhm.
So, so how you know things is, you know, collecting from your previous incarnation. Like you have the form of a table, how you know a table is because of the memory of something like that. We'll get into it in detail. Like
Yeah, yeah.
why? Because Plato is not for everybody.
Right, right, yeah. So we can
But
certainly talk about.
I could never find anyone who couldn't teach Plato without being autistic.
Without being? Honesty.
Autistic. Autistic.
Autistic. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's you have to get into that kind of crazy uh, state of mind, that genius
Hmm.
state of mind to get into this
I mean, for
philosophy.
that time, he was quite good.
Uh-huh.
But I think most of it was Socrates.
Well, we will get into philosophy as we progress, but I'm thinking of wrapping this episode up. We're approaching 2 hours already. So, or is it 1 hour? 1.5 hour.
We, yeah.
Yeah. So, one final question I have for you is, what do you think is at the present? Like we started off this episode with a look at how the Zoomer generation and the nihilistic uh, cultural trends, like if you have any conviction, it's considered cringe,
Hmm.
and that kind of thing.
Fascist.
Yeah, wokeness, that stuff is also there, and it's like a virus, right? It doesn't matter which country you're from, it will slowly start to get into
Hmm. It
each and
creeps.
every, yeah, it creeps into each and every culture,
Hmm.
regardless of your geocentric location or geographical location or whatever. So people have their own every way in every country, people have their own answer to this woke mindset, this liberal
Hmm.
uh, spread. So like here in India, people are coming at this from a conservative, heavily traditional Hindu mindset, and we talked about a bit of Hinduism in this episode. But how does Orthodox Christianity combat this ideology better than the Hindu traditional mindset, or like even the Islamic mindset? What do you think? How does Orthodox Christianity provide a better solution to this kind of ideological threat?
Uh, you'll probably this, was hate
Well,
this
just
answer,
like we
but
can end it on a cliffhanger, like you can.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Orthodox Christianity, according to me, cannot give a solution to this.
Mhm.
Uh, what works, I think, what can be done is on two. I can see these problems in two different ways. One is, yes, every country at some level is, I mean, have the problem of wokeness or progressive ideology, and there are conservative outfits which are fighting them. But uh, it can be done better on the pragmatic level, because when it comes to Orthodox Christianity, or any religion to be precise, the majority, see, there can be a pragmatic approach and answer to any political or geopolitical or governmental problem that is at this point of time. Okay. But Orthodox Christianity is something that will give answers to deeper questions than that. See,
Mhm.
right, there are practical, there can be problems, there are problems which can be solved in a practical or a pragmatic way. That can be done, that can be done to, pressure groups or via different non-government bodies or whatever system is available right now. Yeah. But that can suffice. Now, Orthodox Christianity can give answers if you have questions deeper than that. Okay, wokeism is wrong. So
Mhm.
why wokeism is wrong and why, the Christian thought is right. It can give you answer to that. And like even I think for countries which have good presence of Orthodox Christianity, I think their strength comes from their traditional roles that they play as a family. I think that unit is quite important because a traditional family will ensure that society runs in a particular way. They will try to stop any new virus that is infecting at an early stage, and church helps for that. And I think any traditional religious organization or church or temple can do that if they have the will. It's not something that particularly only Orthodox Christianity can do. But if you are a person who seeks more than the understanding of physical works and how things work and have more questions like creation or maybe what makes us human being or what does being human. I mean, Salman Khan has taken that phrase. you know,
Yeah.
better understanding of soul and its relation to body, or maybe dive into meta ethics. It's not meant for everyone. So the current problems that we discussed, I think any religion with a conservative worldview and enough resources can put a stop to it. It's not only something that Orthodox Christian can only do it.
Mm.
Best example is Russia, man. It's called
Mm.
the third Rome and it has the highest abortions in the world.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, you can't make it now.
So
But
this is very interesting that you mentioned, because it brings up a very valid objection to many of what many non-Christians present to the Christian, so-called Christian civilizations. So, for example, like we are here talking about how orthodoxy is true, and but you'll have these objections, like, if it is true, then how come an orthodox dominated country like Russia, as you mentioned, have the highest rate of abortions in the world? So in short, people will say, are you sure Christianity is not the cause? So Christianity itself is not the cause of this woke kind of virus, this liberal ideology that is uh, infecting the world. So
see
what would you
here,
say to that?
yes, somewhat Maslowish or Maslow hierarchy of needs. Like
Okay.
fine, like let's say you are in middle of Siberia somewhere in Russia. You have a
Right.
local parish everywhere. Every Gao has its own local parish. There is Orthodox church everywhere. And church is like, fight wokeness, have more kids.
Mm.
साइबेरिया वाला बोलेगा अरे बाबा 400 रुपये 500 रुपये ये मेरे बच्चे पैदा करने को. I mean, like, I
Yeah.
can't fulfill my daily needs.
Right.
In my old field discovery, it's no and here.
Because
So
of, yeah,
yes,
poverty. Yeah.
yes. So first things have to be dealt with a pragmatic way. Now let's say, for example, let's say the church has enough resources, which I think Moscow Patriarchate has. Now,
Mhm.
on a long run, obviously, it's not been like, I think, yeah, 91 Soviet Union went off. First decade was full of struggles. Now, you can say somewhere in the 2000s, they must have picked up pace. So it's too soon. But if on a long run, they have something like, some kind of resources to, provide maybe education or healthcare apart from the state. I think that is where then you'll have those traditional families coming. So it has to be. I mean, you can't find you sit uh, sit in a corner. You read the entire scripture. You read all church fathers and everything.
Mhm.
That would satisfy your philosophical needs or your spiritual needs. That
Mhm.
won't run a country. I
So
think
what
that
do
is
you
where orthodoxy is
propose?
smart,
Mhm.
symphony with state and not like
Yeah.
completely
Yeah, and
separate.
right. You're suggesting that we can't change the culture without using some degree of power. Uh,
Not power, you say. You can say there has to be some degree of self-sufficiency for people to think of these things.
mhm.
Not, I mean, we had one of the apostles who had come to this country. We had the British rule, and still nothing happened much. I
Right,
mean, significant.
it's like Japan, it's like a swamp. Everything is everything even Islam after dominating for 700 years, everything got swallowed up and still like you can see, I mean you can of course see cultural uh, influences from British or the Arab invaders, but it did not change the religious dynamic of of the country as a whole.
See, I mean, yeah, that is true. And like from my point of view, it starts with the family. Now, let's say I think of going to a pilgrimage, or let's say I considering donating 10% of my salary to the church. First, I look whether I can look after my family. And having
Mhm.
a traditional family is more expensive because you need to have one spouse sitting at home. And
Right,
for a city dweller, it's quite difficult.
right.
And and so that is only possible to someone who is from you can say a wealthy family background from past few generations.
Mhm.
Or otherwise, you are that skilled, you are earning a fat salary, which is very less. Very few amount of people do that. Not everybody is that super talented. So yes, and then not many people would like to know what is filioque, and should it be something that should stop me going to the Catholic Church? Speaking of current Christians, people who are more uh,
Mhm.
simpler for the church to get into Orthodox. I mean,
Right.
especially Catholics, I can't say for Protestants, but
Mhm.
the Catholic Church, even though they may be liberal, whatever, they provide for their community. They
Right.
have social bonds. They do work in groups. Uh, if you see Catholics, uh, usually people from same parish, quite of them know each other.
Mhm.
So would they leave something like that because filioque is Aryan subordination of the religious or
So
something?
for them, uh, and that's how a lot of normal people think. They don't think about these deep theological, metaphysical issues. They think about what would be most pragmatic in for themselves, for their
Yeah,
careers, for their family.
yeah. Now, even take Hindus. I mean, how many must be knowing Upanishads? Very,
And
very. I mean, single digit percentage if you think of it.
right.
So to get into orthodoxy at this point of stage in India, see the thing with Russia is it has always been that way.
Hmm.
The first church that reached there, I mean, was Orthodox, and it is there like that. And it's only there in countries in which they started. They were the first ones.
Right.
No Catholic country has become Orthodox. No Protestant country has become Orthodox.
Right.
And same it comes to Catholic. No Protestant country has become Catholic. So
Right.
So at that historical point of view, they were there at the right time. Those countries are Catholic. Sorry, Orthodox.
Yeah.
So I don't see India becoming an Orthodox country. Neither does Orthodoxy solve your political and social problems. It can definitely help, but like I
Mhm.
said, it's a pragmatic problem and can be dealt with, and any religious organization can do that. So, like if you want, it's like becoming a student of Plato at this point of time. If you ask, you are so well off that you have the time to give to your religious studies, and then you can just not work and maybe donate something to the church and have servants at home. That is somewhere, because even for me, once I got married, all this reading about church history, scriptures, and church fathers, everything stopped. And when I had kids, it's gotten even worse. I don't remember the last time I read this.
Right. So,
So there,
I mean, you have
it's a big
kids,
thing.
and yeah, I mean, we have immediate loved ones, and many of them are children. Like you have kids, as you mentioned. So, what kind of an what would be? I mean, it's how can India uh, not fall into nihilistic, you know, chaos? Like we see, like you're working in the corporates, right?
Mm.
So you many of us see already there are like non-binary toilets are already available in India.
Yeah.
And then I saw this Twitter post, this I don't know which magazine it was, probably Indian GQ or something like that,
Mm.
where they had a transgendered person on the cover of that magazine.
Mm.
And we're also moving towards legalization of same-sex marriage in the near future.
Mm.
So, does India stand a chance at stopping these things from, taking a hold of our culture as it has in Western countries?
That I think first would depend very much on the economy.
Economy.
If you're relying more on service sector kind of economy, the chances of that spreading is really high. But if
Mm,
you're more like China, you're more into manufacturing. If your
mm,
economy relies on manufacturing, there you can't rely on. There's no space for these things because you need to get things done. No, you have to
mm.
physically work. You have to produce real goods. There your LGBT shit won't work. मतलब
So
लगा देगा ये.
self-sustainability is the
Yes,
key.
even if you check US, it has increased when that manufacturing has decreased. See,
Right.
only service sectors can promote such things. Can't be done in manufacturing. I
Right.
imagine it's a brick factory in some village, and then
Yeah.
like you'll have diversity quotas. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So that is, I think that is the major thing. So,
So we have to. You're saying that we have to start at home. That's the most important thing.
yes,
With family, with
see, it's not like this is first, this is second. There are a lot of things which come together, coexist at the same time.
yeah.
Now, yes, it starts with family, but then you again need to have a community.
Right.
You know, especially when it comes to kids.
Hmm.
Like you teach your kids world is X, but the moment they step out and they say everybody is saying world is Y,
Hmm.
so uh, it's not just the family, it's the family, it's the community, it's the church that should guide the community. It's see the more layers of influence at different levels you have, the more it can direct the course of a larger society. Now, what the emphasis is like when I finished my junior college, it was everybody wanted to be a computer.
Computer
Civil,
engineer.
yeah. If you talk about civil, everybody did jobs, mechanical, and I think back in 2001 or 2002, even if you do a basic networking, I don't know how true it is, but even at that point of time, you did a basic networking course, you would get an HOD when it was at its early stages.
Hmm.
So everybody was into it, and now we have a lot of engineers who can't
Hmm.
really build anything, who are either working in banks or any service sector. They mostly are there in dominating service sectors.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that are wrong, which I mean, orthodoxy can't answer that. I mean, why engineering and all that thing, but it can give you what do you say? It can give you a good foundation, definitely.
Yeah, it can give you the principle by which
Mm,
you, whether you're doing any business or
mm.
whatever, it can give you good solid principles to go
Uh,
by, so that whatever you are doing does not come back, and hurt your family or and hurt your society and culture.
and that's how the society grows also. Now, if you take example for Jews and Muslims, if you see
Hmm.
how they do business, they always deal with people of their own community.
Right. Yeah.
That is why community is important. So there are a lot of different things. I mean, we don't have to get into. Uh, it doesn't has to be the worldview of the Orthodox Church itself. That can come.
Hmm.
I mean, in the context of India, that can come later. And I don't think. Yes, we'll definitely grow
Hmm.
because there will always be people like us who want to know more, and
Yeah.
maybe they'll they'll get more people, and with time we'll get more peaceful. Numbers will definitely increase. There's no doubt about that. But I think the best we can do is have a Benedict option.
Right. Yeah. What is the Benedict option for those of
So it's
who are not
similar
familiar?
to, uh, we can say, so the concept is people of the same religion or a community,
Hmm.
they occupy or they come together and live in a particular piece of land in which they are the exclusive people living over there. So in that, so that makes the society uh, better because one, since you are from the same religion, same community, what you things that are important for you are the same,
Hmm.
which gets a job done better. And when it comes to politically, you'll have your own candidate from that area because that's the only part of community that's living over there. Business transaction can be done more trust because it's a functioning community with a with a church overseeing things, so people know each other. So that's I think that's the best we can have as an Orthodox Church in India goes. I think anything beyond that, I mean, anything is possible, and God is not limited, no doubt about that. But considering how things work in India and how history of India is, I think we'll, course of time, get into numbers of few thousands. Maybe living together in a community would be the best option. And obviously, if you are successful, we are. It's a religion that's open for everyone. So if you are successful, people will like to join.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a good place to stop, I think. And we will certainly get into all of these uh, concepts that that was discussed, like the Benedict option. I would like to know more about how that can be fleshed out in future episodes. So yeah.
I think the best example for you, if you want to look into, was you remember between there were libertarians who went to New Hampshire.
Are you
Everyone
talking
was
about the Free State, the Libertarian Free State project, or something like that?
Which was so everybody moved to, not everybody as in people of the same thought process went to New Hampshire. So that
Yeah,
is sort of a benefit.
very very interesting. Maximus, it was a pleasure having this conversation to you. I personally am very excited to doing this more often with you, and just exploring all kinds of things. So yeah, I mean, what did you think of our conversation? I thought it was very stimulating personally.
Yeah, I mean it was good to talk in such a format, but
And we will also
um,
have to think about a name for our podcast. So
we will give it some thought. let's not
We
hurry.
will definitely give it some thought. So yeah, but I mean, God bless you, Maximus, and hope to talk to you soon.
God bless you.
Take
Definitely
care.
catch up. Thank you.